There is a narrow pass on the coast of Greece called Thermopylae. It is barely 15 meters wide at its narrowest point. On one side, cliffs, on the other, the sea. In 480 BC, the largest army ever assembled in the ancient world marched toward that pass, and 300 men decided to stand in its way. This is not a myth. This is not a movie. Every detail of what happened at Thermopylae was recorded by people who lived through it, and the real story is more extraordinary than anything Hollywood invented. To understand why 300 men made that choice, you have to understand where they came from. Sparta was unlike any city in the ancient world. It had no great walls, no massive temples, no monuments to its own glory. What Sparta had was an idea, and the idea was total. Every male citizen of Sparta existed for one purpose: to be the perfect soldier. At birth, Spartan boys were examined by city elders. Those deemed too weak were left on a hillside to die. Those who survived were marked from that moment as property of the state. At age 7, every Spartan boy was taken from his family. He entered a brutal training system called the agoge. For the next 13 years, he would learn to endure pain, hunger, cold, and humiliation. He slept on reeds he cut himself. He was given barely enough food to survive. If he wanted more, he stole it. If he was caught stealing, he was beaten, not for stealing, but for getting caught. The lesson was not morality. The lesson was never show weakness. At 18, a Spartan trainee faced his final test. He was sent into the countryside alone, with no weapons and no food for an entire year. He survived however he could. Many did not come back. Those who returned became warriors, full Spartan citizens, members of the most feared fighting force in the ancient world. A Spartan soldier did not fight for glory or money or land. He fought because fighting was the only thing he had ever been trained to do. And he fought beside men he had lived with since the age of 7. The bond between Spartan warriors was not tactical. It was the deepest form of brotherhood that existed. In 490 BC, the Persian Empire made its first attempt to conquer Greece. At the Battle of Marathon, a smaller Greek force defeated the Persian army completely. The Persian king Darius died before he could take revenge. His son Xerxes inherited the empire and the humiliation. Xerxes spent 10 years preparing the largest military force the ancient world had ever seen. Ancient sources claim his army numbered over 1 million men. Modern historians estimate between 100,000 and 300,000, still an incomprehensible number for the time. He built a bridge of boats across the Hellespont, the strait between Asia and Europe. When a storm destroyed the first bridge, Xerxes reportedly had the sea whipped 300 times as punishment. Then he built a second bridge and crossed it anyway. His army included soldiers from 46 different nations: Persians, Medes, Egyptians, Indians, Ethiopians, Babylonians, the full extent of his empire. Cavalry, infantry, archers, chariots, war elephants. The ancient historian Herodotus wrote that when Xerxes' army drank from rivers, the rivers ran dry. When the Persian fleet and army moved together along the coast of Greece, the sky above the sea filled with sails. Greek city-states that had never agreed on anything suddenly faced a simple choice: submit to Persia and survive, resist and be destroyed. Most chose to submit. The cities of northern Greece opened their gates without a fight. Athens refused. Sparta refused. The Greeks who chose to fight sent representatives to a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. It was the best defensive position in Greece. Any army moving south had to pass through it. There was no other route.
the Greek alliance assembled a force of approximately 7,000 men to hold the pass. At its core were 300 Spartans, personally selected by their king. His name was Leonidas. He was approximately 60 years old. He had been king of Sparta for nearly a decade. He chose 300 men, every one of them a father with living sons. He was not choosing men who had nothing to lose. He was choosing men who had everything to lose. And he chose them anyway.
Leonidas arrived at Thermopylae days before the Persian army. He used the time to rebuild an ancient wall across the narrowest point of the pass. When the Persian scouts arrived and reported back to Xerxes, the king was not concerned. 300 men against his army was not a military problem. It was an insult. Xerxes waited 4 days for the Greeks to surrender or flee. They did neither. On the 5th day, he sent his first wave of soldiers into the pass. What happened next became one of the most studied military engagements in history. The narrow pass eliminated every Persian advantage. Their numbers meant nothing. Only a few dozen men could fight at a time. The Greek hoplite formation, shields locked together, long spears extended, was a wall of bronze. Wave after wave of Persian soldiers entered the pass. Wave after wave was pushed back. The Persians were skilled warriors. Many were brave. None of it helped. The Spartans fought in rotating shifts, moving fresh soldiers to the front, while exhausted men recovered. They lured Persian units forward and then retreated, drawing them into tighter sections of the pass. Persian bodies filled the entrance. The dead had to be cleared before the next wave could advance. On the first day, Xerxes reportedly rose from his throne 3 times in alarm, watching his men fall. At the end of the first day, the pass still held. On the second day, Xerxes sent his finest soldiers, the Immortals, 10,000 elite Persian warriors, the personal guard of the king himself. They entered the pass. They were driven back like everyone else. At the end of the second day, the pass still held. That night, everything changed. A local Greek man named Ephialtes went to the Persian camp. He told Xerxes about a mountain path that bypassed the pass entirely. In exchange for a reward, he agreed to guide the Persian army around the back of the Greek position. Leonidas had known about the path. He had stationed a force of 1,000 Greeks to guard it. When the Persian force appeared on the path at night, the guards fled. By morning, Leonidas knew the pass was lost. He dismissed the allied Greek forces, thousands of men sent home to fight another day. 300 Spartans remained, along with roughly 700 Thespians who refused to leave, and a small force of Thebans who stayed, though ancient sources disagree on whether they chose to or were forced. Leonidas led his men forward, away from the wall, deeper into the pass. Not to hold it, the pass was already lost. He moved forward to give the retreating Greek army more time, and to make the Persians pay as high a price as possible for what they were about to win.
The final battle at Thermopylae was not a defense, it was a charge. Leonidas led his remaining men forward into the widest part of the pass. Fighting in the open, surrounded, with no hope of survival, they killed until they could no longer stand. Leonidas himself was killed in the fighting. The Persians reportedly sent men to recover his body. The Spartans formed a circle around their king's body and fought until every last one of them fell. Persian sources confirm what Greek sources describe. The losses among Xerxes' elite troops that day were catastrophic. 20,000 Persian soldiers died at Thermopylae over 3 days. 300 Spartans and their allies died on the last morning. Xerxes marched south. He took Athens. He burned the Acropolis to the ground. It looked like total victory, but something had happened at Thermopylae that could not be undone. The Greek city-states that had been paralyzed by fear watched what 300 men had done. 1 month after Thermopylae, the Greek fleet destroyed the Persian navy at the Battle of Salamis. The Persian army, cut off from its supply ships, began to starve. 1 year after Thermopylae, the Greek army destroyed the Persian land forces at the Battle of Plataea. Xerxes retreated back to Persia. He never returned to Greece. The invasion that was supposed to take weeks had cost him 2 years, a fleet, and an army. It had also cost him something harder to measure, the idea that Persia was unstoppable. At Thermopylae, a stone monument was erected over the fallen Spartans. The inscription read, "Go tell the Spartans, stranger passing by, that here, obedient to their laws, we lie." No rage, no boasting, no appeal for sympathy, just a statement of fact. They were given a law, they followed it to the end. The Persian Empire would survive for another 150 years. It would be destroyed not by the Greeks, but by Alexander the Great, a Macedonian who grew up reading about Thermopylae. Alexander reportedly kept a copy of Herodotus's account of the battle beside his bed. The 300 men who died in that narrow pass shaped the education of the man who would end the empire that killed them. History moves in long arcs. Thermopylae was one of its pivots. The pass is still there today, the cliffs and the sea. The wall Leonidas rebuilt is gone. The bodies are gone. But the narrow place where 300 men decided that some things were worth dying for, that place has never been forgotten.